The meeting is done.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey.
Hey, hey, Dr. Amakobe. Hey, Kaley, how are you?
We're fine. We're fine. We're waiting for you. Like, where can we come to your house? Okay, that's good. Now it's nice to see you. How is feeling?
Good, same as normal. Everything's quiet and it's wintry.
Uh-huh.
And colder.
Are you in Maryland right now? Where are you, David?
I'm in Middletown.
Middletown, okay.
Middletown, so it's quiet. So it's like I was telling Miss Kelly that, you know what, I'm so used to working at home now.
Mm-hmm.
After all this is done, somebody has to convince me why I have to go to the office.
Yeah, right.
All right. So I think you guys are busy. We're all busy. We can just start. I can see what do you call the other participants waiting. So we can just start off so that we can let you go. Basically, before we start, it's just what my recruits want to know is what do they expect? You understand? Just like I wrote on the letter, because I'm taking you guys because I keep telling them that they have to be independent. They have to learn to be independent, but they have to be truthful when they sign the contract and stuff like that. And we are hiring professionals. We are not hiring people. We are hiring people who are supposed to tell us what to do in their field. So we are not picking up. Yeah. So basically, that's what they would like to know from you. And when I told them that I'm bringing CGFNS, everybody was jumping up thinking, yeah, we want to see these people who normally give us exams, which we fail. All right. So we can just start. I'll just introduce you a little bit, and then you introduce yourselves, and then we are up and running.
Great, perfect.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you for coming, Miss Kelly and Mr. Prakash. My name is Dr. David Amakobe. I'm from African Wood Incorporated. Today, as I told you, we are going to have a webinar and hear it from the horse mouth. The horse mouth is CGFNS. It's an organization that you all know provides the exams that you guys do before you can certify your licenses to be able to come and work in the United States. So I brought them on so that they can be able to tell you who are the people in this ecosystem, the people, the groups, and the structures and the processes that we all have to go through to make sure that we are hiring the right people for this market. So thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Kaley, for coming. I'll just hand it over to you so that you can take over from there.
Great, absolutely. Thanks so much for the invitation, David, and great to see everyone. David, could you give me screen sharing ability or share the document I sent?
Yeah, I will.
Great. So while David does that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mukul Bakhshi. I kind of wear two hats at CGFNS. I'm the director of the Alliance for Ethical International Recruitment Practices, which we'll talk a bit about, which is a division of CGFNS. I've been in that role for 6 years. And I also serve as the Director of Government Affairs for CGFNS. Kaley?
Hello, my name is Kaley Cook. I'm the Program Coordinator at the Alliance. Before this role, I was also working as a Credentials Analyst at CGFNS.
Great, thank you, Kaley. And Kaley, do you have the documents that you're the host, it looks like? If you could just share that.
Oh, wait, no. No, I was making you the host, and then I made her, and then I muted her. Yeah, that's what I get for. Oh, Kaley, can you give it back the host? Now I'm not a host.
Yeah, Kaley, you'll have to give me the host. If you just ship this to me.
She's not hearing because she's muted.
Well, she should be able to hear us, hopefully.
Eh?
Yeah, great, perfect. Thank you. Perfect. Well, it was a pleasure to see you all. I think you can see my screen. Is that good? Right. Yep. Great. So again, it's a pleasure to meet everybody today. And I can't see you right now, but feel free to throw in questions in the chat or whoever else. And we can answer them now or towards the end. We have quite a bit of time for discussion. So we're going to talk about a couple things today. David, I think, came up to us and said, what, can you share with this group of people who are professionals excited to be on their migration journey? And we covered a kind of a wide array of things in this discussion. And so we're doing it at a pretty high level, but I want to invite you both in this discussion and afterwards to, get information as you need it, either through David or by feel free to reach out to us. African Wood and Amakobe is Alliance certified, and they've really expressed commitment to conducting recruitment with fair and ethical standards. So we're going to talk today about CGFNS. Many of you know what that is, but if you're not, we'll explain it, and the migration process, a little bit about that. Then we're going to talk about labor rights and how do your labor rights work within the U.S. Each country has its own set of rules, as you might be aware, and there are particular things to be aware of when it comes to the U.S. And then we're going to talk about some other discussion topics and kind of open up Q&A. As David just said, you can feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat. Okay, so some of you might have heard of CGFNS, and I could tell you the whole mission statement. But what we really are about is we ensure that professionals like yourselves can bring your education and experience across borders. If there weren't organizations like CGFNS, then the education you had in say, Kenya, for example, wouldn't be able to be carried over to your profession should you move to another jurisdiction like the US. And so we help organizations in the US like state licensure authorities or the US government to make sure that they recognize that the experience you bring is equivalent or comparable to that of a US domestically trained nurse. And so if CGFNS is kind of the gateway allowing you to bring your experience across borders, the Alliance is the division that wants to ensure that that happens fairly. So when we talk about recruitment and employment practices that are fair, as defined by our code. And Kaley's going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Okay. So this is a little bit of the history of CGFNS. CGFNS was founded in 1977. There are two large U.S. organizations, the American Nurses Association and the National League for Nursing, that created CGFNS because foreign educated nurses, when they were taking the board exams back then, weren't necessarily doing as well as they could have. A lot of them were failing. And so they said, what can we do to avoid putting nurses in a position where they're coming here and aren't able to practice? And then in 1996, a U.S. law called IRA was passed by Congress, and that established the visa screen process. And a visa screen certificate, if you're applying for an employment-based visa, is what you'll need to get a visa as a nurse. And then this is kind of a depiction of that kind of broad process at a very high level. So when you're applying for visa and trying to get to the US is a relatively complicated process compared to some other countries that people come to. Obviously, the US is a place a lot of people want to be, both from a work perspective, wages and opportunities tend to be very good. And from a life perspective, a lot of people think that the US is a good place to live and raise families. And so there's kind of a multiple step process. So the first is if you apply for a visa, obviously the Department of Homeland Security, which is responsible for a lot of this stuff, will do some kind of initial background screen. And then that shifts over to understanding your nursing or other healthcare professional credentials. And so we'll have, we look at our database, we look at the documents like your transcripts, your licenses that are sent over from the country, and your test results. So you might take the NCLEX, which is the board exam for nurses in the US. You can also take the CGFNS CP exam. It's an exam that's a qualifying exam. Either of those allows you to do visa screen. And then you have English language requirements. And so you take TOEFL or IELTS to prove that you have English language proficiency. So that's where CGFNS is looking to verify and authenticate the credentials you have. And then we evaluate them. We say, are these what you need? And they're for two purposes. So I mentioned the visa screen program. This is what we do for if you're applying for an employment-based visa, like as a nurse. So the only way you wouldn't need a visa screen is if you were coming under a non-employment-based visa, say as a family member or a diversity or refugee visa, for example. But most nurses coming to the U.S. will need a visa screen as part of their application for a visa. And with that, once you go through that whole process, you have an employment-based visa. Now, each state has a license to practice. So that visa is just to get you into the country. Then you need a license to practice where you're living. And each of the states has a license. And so you would generally come to CGFNS for something called a CES report, where we would evaluate your credentials for licensure. We'd make a recommendation to a state board of nursing. And so with that, that program, you would have a license to practice and then actually work in your profession in that state. So this is at a very high level, but it explains, I think, the process, kind of the multiple step process to both get a visa to come to the US and then to get a license to practice as a nurse here. And I just show these charts because they show the pattern. You'll see that in the mid 2000s, 2006, 2007, a lot of nurses were coming to the US. That dropped down quite a bit, but it's coming back up. And if I showed you the last couple of years of the chart, it'd be even higher. So we're not where we were in 2007, but there is a very kind of large resurgence in recruitment. That's partly because of how visa rules have shifted with retrogression, which I'll talk about in a minute, and also just because demand has been so high for nurses. Okay. And I showed this chart. This is called EB3 visa retrogression charts. That's a lot of words. You probably don't know what that means, but EB3 is the visa that a lot of foreign educated nurses come under. It's probably the largest one. And what these charts show you is that there are a long wait. So it depends on what country you're coming from. So if you look from India, there might be a 10-year wait for an EB3 visa. From the Philippines, it's gone down recently, but you're still talking about a year or two. I think it's important to note that for people coming from Kenya and other African countries, there's no retrogression. So there's still a long process to go through all these steps, right? There's a lot of steps in the process that could take 6 months, a year or more, but there's no extra delay. And that is a real advantage for you if you're considering coming to the US. Coming back up, and if I showed you the last couple of years, me echoing. And then, so what I mentioned the EB3 visa and the categories. So this is a kind of a chart that shows you what the different categories are. And I wouldn't get too caught up in the different names. You know, I've spent years in immigration as a lawyer, and I still can mess up some of the alphabet soup of names and different types. But at a high level, most people are coming under green card visas. That's why it's green. These are permanent visas that allow you long-term residency in the United States. And the most common there is the EB3 visa I just mentioned. Some other nurses, particularly advanced practice nurses, come under what's called the H-1B visa. And then the TN visa is one that is for people in Canada and Mexico. So, you know, from your perspective, most likely be a green card visa, EB3. And as I mentioned before, one of the real benefits for people coming from Africa is that there is no retrogression delay. That said, the US process is certainly more challenging and arduous than most, but the opportunities here are particularly compelling compared to even a lot of other places that people like to go, like the UK and Canada, et cetera. Okay. So with that, I'm going to switch it over to my colleague, Kaley, and she'll talk a bit about protecting and securing the labor rights of nurses in the U.S. And Kaley, if you could just let me know when you want me to switch slides, that would be great.
Okay, thanks. All right, so we'll start by talking about a few initiatives that work together to promote ethical health professional recruitment around the world. So this exists at a couple of different levels. There are initiatives like the Global Compact for Migration, as well as the WHO actually has a code on ethical healthcare recruitment as well. So these exist at a very high level and they have very broad guidelines. So where the Alliance Code fits in is that it takes all of that and localizes it to a specific area like the United States, and then it can take those guidelines and make them more specific under the laws and immigration practices of that area. Let's go to the next slide. So the Alliance Code is a multi-stakeholder effort to maximize the benefits of foreign educated health professional recruitment for everyone. So it's a voluntary agreement that sets up best practice standards for fair, transparent, and ethical recruitment. It was developed by recruiters, employers, nursing organizations, and labor representatives. I think a lot of us are aware of why we need the code. If health professionals do not understand their legal obligations, they can be subject to problematic recruitment provisions, which can lead to things like breaches or underutilization or other issues that can come up in the recruitment process. So having the code really benefits everyone. It aligns everyone's expectations, and it provides an independent resource for information about the process. The Alliance does its work through a couple of different ways. We work to educate professionals to make informed decisions about their own careers. And we also certify recruiters based on demonstrated ethical behaviors. They agree to comply with our code, and they also agree to oversight going forward. We also work to develop and share research on recruitment issues, which is something we'll go over in a bit more detail in a little bit. Next slide. So the code balances the stakeholder interests and seeks to maximize the benefits and mitigate the harms of migration. We know that migration is already occurring. We know it's going to keep occurring. We know that a lot of health systems rely on it. So as it's occurring, we want to make sure it's being as ethical as possible, which means understanding a delicate balance of an individual's right to migrate and preserving the interests of a nation's workforce. Guiding to maximize benefits and reduce potential harm for the relationship between foreign educated health professionals, source countries, and employers. There's a lot of different sides going on in international recruitment. We need to make sure that they're all educated on the issues. So in 2018, I believe, our code was updated to a rights-based framework, which works to be very transparent about all sides and their rights and responsibilities. Next slide. So what you see here is language that comes up in the CGFNS Connect portal for Visa Screen. I don't know if anyone here is using this program, but if you have, you might have already seen this. It provides users information on the Alliance, on ethical certified recruitment firms, and it gives a link to our website where you can find our healthcare code. It also provides an email, which is staff@cgfnsalliance.org, which is somewhere that you can send information if you have a question about your recruitment process. And we know that African Wood is already certified, but if you have any questions, you can come to us. Or if you've had a bad experience with another recruiter, you can still send us that information and we can give you the information that we have. Next slide. So earlier this year, CGFNS and the Alliance completed research on recruitment experiences, and 2/3 of the respondents reported having a positive recruitment experience. So that's great, we love to see that. But as you can see, almost 15% are still reporting a negative experience. So there's a couple of things that we're looking for in terms of ethical behavior. We can go to the next slide. So some of these are whether or not an individual was provided a copy of their contract, whether or not they were able to review it, and whether or not they knew their hourly wage or benefits before they started. So as you can see here, those percentages are pretty high, which is great. We'd love to get them up to 100, but it's great that so many individuals are reporting that that's occurring in their recruitment process. There are also a few negatives we're seeing occurring, which is paying a recruiter fee, providing collateral. That means having to put up an asset as basically insurance that you're going to complete your contract, something like your house or another valuable asset. There's also withholding documents. If your recruiter takes something like your passport and hangs on to it, that's a problem. That's unethical behavior. We would like to get all of these percentages down to 0. Next slide. There are a few other issues that are just something to keep in mind in your journey. These are things like location issues and forced moves. If you have to go where your contract is, you may have to move to a location that you don't want to. Your recruiter may put you in a part of the country you don't want to go with weather conditions. Things like bench pay. Bench pay is the pay you receive when you're in between contracts. So if you have to move because your contract changes, are you being paid in the interim? There's also the term of the contract. This is the length of the contract. So typically we're seeing 3 years, but it can vary. Sufficient cultural and clinical orientation is also important. Everyone should want you to be set up to succeed in your role, and that includes adequate orientation. Job alignment and progression is something that we hear about a lot, not being able to work in your specified field, which can prevent moving forward in your career in the way that you would like. This is something also to keep in mind, as well as the issue of breach fees. Breach fees are the fee that you pay for breaching your contract. So the Alliance believes that these fees should be prorated, which means the fee that you pay should be lower if you were to breach in your final year than the initial year. Breach fees take a couple of different forms. They can be liquidated damages, which means an estimate that is usually set up in the contract. That's an estimate of what the recruiter expects to pay, or actual damages, which is an actual dollar amount that they spent. We do typically see breach fees in contracts. It's very common. However, something that I just want to note is that a lot of the nurses that we talk to aren't aware of what their breach fees are. So as you're looking at a contract or signing a contract, just be aware of what it says regarding breach fees, because it's information that you definitely want to have going forward. And with that, I'll pass it back to Mukul.
Oh, you're passing back to me or to?
No, I got it.
Okay.
We're good. Thank you very much. So thank you so much, Kaley. So we're going to pass it to you and David in a minute, but I did want to cover a couple other topics. So, David gave us a real list of topics that would be of interest to you. And so I want to touch base on some of them. So the nursing shortage, what does that mean? And what does that mean to you? There's a lot of debate in academic literature about the extent and clarity of nursing shortages. I would say overall, even before this year, it's clear that there's more demand for nurses than there are nurses working in the United States. And so people who are excited to come from countries and work in the U.S. workforce are certainly needed. There's a debate of whether how big the shortage is. There's some question of whether overall the number of RNs is or is not the same as the amount needed. But what's very clear is there are extreme shortage pockets, meaning in certain areas, like certain specialties or certain geographies, particularly rural areas or some urban areas, there are relatively extreme shortages there. Now that's what I would have told you if we were talking 10 months ago. And maybe we're not being on Zoom, maybe we'd be in a conference room or video. Well, not in this case, but in some ways we would be, in a more normal world. Now, what's happened this year is it's actually been more extreme, those shortage pockets. So, some nurses, particularly elective surgeries, et cetera, might have less ability to work now than they did. But in a lot of the hospital areas, particularly ICU nurses, but even other areas, there is such extreme demand. I was talking to someone, demands more than doubled in the last year, and salaries have increased as well. So there are definite shortage opportunities for nurses like yourselves to find a reasonably well-paying role within the U.S. And so that's what the COVID-19 impact is. There's incredible demand, but as I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about the visa categories, there are some impediments. So, when I showed this chart, I mentioned I showed some executive orders, like the April 22nd executive order and the June 22nd. During President Trump, issued some executive orders restricting a lot of immigration this year. Now, what I want to pull out for you is that there's actually a pretty large exemption for healthcare workers there. So even while a lot of other industries like tech industry and education are really impacted by this, there's been a decision that recognizing the value of nurses. So I think that's really great. I think the thing to recognize also is that there are still some slowdowns because of COVID, right? So, I mentioned the CGFNS process. Well, that means we need to get documents sent from a licensing authority and from a school. That might be delayed if the school is closed or has restrictions or mail is slower. And then embassy interviews can be a problem. So there are definitely some obstacles that need to be surmounted when we're talking about immigrating during this pandemic. Family concerns. So a lot of you may have family members or other dependents whom you want to bring with you. So there are EB dependent visas. So these are visas for family members, for people coming under employment-based visas like nurses. And so the details about those vary a lot, right? So it's very different bringing your minor child who's under 18 versus an adult sibling or adult child, for example. So, talking to David or to an immigration attorney ultimately to understand what that looks like is very important. But certainly for minor children and spouses, it's a relatively straightforward process. For other family members, it's a much more difficult process as a general rule. So what to consider in making this decision? So we gave you a lot of detail about the Alliance and CGFNS and the world landscape. What does that kind of mean to you? What am I bringing to you? Well, one of the things that Kaley really highlighted is like, you need to know what you're signing, right? So I guess the first part is, understanding the recruiter you picked. And I think that the fact that you're here on a call with David's obviously a very good sign. You're working with someone who's informed. You're taking the time to learn about the process early on. So that's all a real testament to how you're positioning yourself to really succeed in the future. But more generally, you want to look at your recruiter and make sure that you feel comfortable with them and that they're ethical and transparent. And so looking for a firm like African Wood that is certified is really important. Then you want to know what your contract is. So I say know what you're paying for. The recruiter is putting up a lot of effort, time, money to help facilitate your migration from where you're coming from to your workplace in the U.S. So it's really important to know, what are you on the hook for, right? And so some firms will charge you up front, and we generally look down on upfront costs because often you might not have the resources to cover them. But you should know what you're paying up front. And just as importantly, are there costs on the back end? So Kaley mentioned breach fees. And these are another way of paying costs on the back end, right? Those are fees that the firm has put up for you. So understanding, what are the costs I'm paying regardless? What are the costs I'm paying if I leave early? And feeling really comfortable with that is really important. And then related to that, it's not just about the money; it's about the requirements, right? So be clear on your requirements. Where can I work for how long, right? So, if we go back to this page, these are all issues that Kaley and I have talked to nurses and they didn't understand. So where are you going to work? A lot of contracts are for staffing firms all throughout the United States. Would you feel comfortable working in North Dakota or South Dakota with very cold winters? Would you is a 3-year contract something you're reasonably willing to commit to? Like those are you have the training that you need to be successful. Is it in the job roles that will be ones that advance your career, or are you required to do anything? All of these decisions are ones that Kaley and I can't answer for you. That's an individual decision on your job opportunities and what your prospects are, et cetera. But the real key is being understanding of what are you committing to and being comfortable with those commitments so that you're not putting yourself in a position later where you have to breach your commitment to your recruiter in a hospital and also put yourself in a position where you're more of a financial hole than you want it to be or should be given the kind of opportunities you're seeking in the U.S. So with that, I know we're about halfway through our session, and so I want to stop here and turn it over to David and open it up the conversation for questions, answers, or any discussion points you would like to have. But thank you again for the opportunity to share some insights on this process with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This has been a very brief and to the point presentation, because most of the time when candidates start the process, say like in Kenya or in Ghana, they are completely at a loss at what it is, because some of them come to us when they're already doing the exams, or when they have applied for a visa but they have a visitor's visa, or they have qualified but they don't know how to transform their local license to an American license so they can be able to work. So that process of doing that is very important because, you know, as you say, they need to come to us when they know what they are coming for. You know, if somebody comes to your office and they just say, help me go to work, that's very complicated. That's why at African Wood, we like our customers educated so they can know what they are buying or they can know what questions to ask. You understand? Because the best customer you can deal with is an educated customer, because both of you know what each one is providing and how they are providing it and at what time they are providing it. But when customers are not educated or informed, misunderstandings occur a lot. And these are professionals. They are nurses. They are registered nurses. They get paid for providing a professional service. So they should understand that I am a recruiter. I get paid by recruiting. I get paid by recruiting. Yeah, you understand? So it's we normally say that we need to be able to put that out there, so that if the hospital is if the most of the payment is coming at the back end, they know that money will come at the back end, instead of when they come here and then they say like, oh yeah, you know, you were told me you're going to pay me XY, but I'm being paid XY. They sort of don't know that. So the one question that I would like to ask, somebody's emailed me was, how about because we're talking about healthcare, but we are considering nursing. But what about doctors? Do CGFNS, do you deal with doctors?
So doctors is a very different path in a lot of ways. So CGFNS is not. There's an equivalent organization called ECFMG, which is the Educational Commission on Foreign Medical Graduates. That's right down the street from us. That does evaluation for physicians wanting to become doctors in the U.S. I will say, you know, it varies quite a bit, but in general, it's a very difficult process for a doctor who's educated outside the United States and trained outside the U.S. to bring their experience and become a doctor in the U.S. So I think it's much easier from a nurse perspective than or even from a allied profession like a physical therapist or occupational therapist. Doctors, for a variety of reasons, are different. And the visa categories I mentioned are also very different. So we'll have doctors come under a J1 visa, for example. So I would say everything I said in this discussion is applicable to nurses for sure. It's also largely applicable to other allied health professions, but I would say it's very different for doctors. And if someone has questions offline, I'm happy to kind of talk more about that.
Okay. And then you already dealt with the family visa issue, because that is not a CGFNS concern. It's basically a legal concern, because most of they'll come to us and say, okay, I want to come and work. I'm ready. I'm working on my examination, something like that. How do I deal with my family? But we normally say that's a legal issue, because in the first place, we have to work through the system for them to be able to come before they can even think about the family. Because it cannot be in parallel. It cannot be in parallel, because you don't know whether this is going to work out. And as you said, visas from Kenya are a little iffy for now, in the sense that we have to make sure that everything is, all ducks are in a row, so that they can be, we get the work visas instead of them coming here with the visitors visas.
Yep.
So that is one other point that I normally point out to them, because they will tell me, oh yeah, I got a visa and I'm coming. But you know, I'm thinking, if you come here as a visitor, even the immigration officer at entry may not let you in. You see the complication. If we all do all these processes, but they are coming in with a visitor's visa, we have no control over what, because if you tell the immigration officer at entry that I'm coming in but I'll switch, that is a complication. So what do we tell them? If you are coming here to work as a nurse, we want you to make sure that you have all the visa information, so that there's no bait and switch.
Yep.
Normally, that's a very complicated thing to tell. I normally think that when I talk to them, they think that I'm being too hard.
No,
So that's why when
I
they try-
think that's right. I mean, a tourist visa is for tourist purposes, so you never want to be telling an immigration officer you're coming in with the opportunity to switch. That's generally frowned upon for obvious reasons. The goal of the tourist visa is not to just get you in and for you to switch. And I think your point about, yeah, I would strongly caution people to recognize that there might be a time lag between when they come and when their family members come, because you want to do your work visa first, and then begin the other process as a sponsor of that visa, as opposed to doing everything in parallel, which is generally not workable. And when it is, it can delay the process quite a bit. So
And then the idea of you CGFNS certifies recruiters. Do you have a way of rating hostels too, employers? Because it's sometimes a dicey issue when I am handing over my client to a hostel and I don't know the rating, I don't know their history. Is there a way I can be able to get, how can I put it, the employment history of employers in the healthcare?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Kaley and I were actually having that conversation in a very different context. We certify recruiters, staffing and placement agencies that recruit people, but there's no, I mean, the Joint Commission certifies hospitals, but it's really about how they deliver healthcare. It's really not from the experience of the nurse generally, or the foreign educated nurse in particular, right? So that doesn't exist right now. I think that certainly is a gap in the process, and I think that's something that is difficult as a recruiter, because you're trying to find places where you're the people you recruit can really succeed, and really you have to do that based on relationships and experience. So there's not kind of some external gauge to do so.
Yeah, because you understand deserve. It's like, okay, I've been in the US for almost 20 years. I know the lay of the land. Sort of I can know who to place. As we normally do, we do some behavioral and cognitive and emotional tests for people, so that we can be able to place them in places where they will actually survive. You mean they will survive? You understand? It's more that we actually use employment. We go through the employment tests to make sure that we can be able to, our recruits can be able to survive into the culture they are going to. But I was thinking it would be a good thing too to have a rating system for the employers, because not the delivery, but of course the delivery of health depends on the people. So maybe that rating could also help. But directly, how do people fit in? Particularly so if somebody was trained overseas. You understand? If he's trained overseas.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's important. A lot of facilities do a better or worse job of providing good opportunities, growth opportunities, and integration, both cultural and clinical kind of training and support. And it varies a bit, but there's, certainly, I think, at least in the near term, no kind of formal gauge to do that. So,
okay.
I know there's I see this other question here, right?
Yes.
From lady. I'm in the US and have completed my process with CGFNS. I got my visa screen certificate and I've been finding really hard to get hired from company. Is there any support from CGFNS in finding a sponsorship? So CGFNS does not work in the recruitment industry, so we don't, provide support in terms of finding a position or a job.
That is a job for me.
Yeah, that's for you. But I will say this, there's tremendous demand for nurses in the US, and you have your visa screen already. So like you're right. The fact that you're basically ready to work, I think is very, very helpful. And so I would talk to David and I would talk to whoever you can in terms of finding opportunities. The opportunities are there right now, I would say.
I think the opportunities are there. So I think we will. If you are listening to us, we'll talk after this. If you can get in touch with us, that's fine. We'll see. I mean, you say you're having difficulties finding work, but anyhow, you know, every situation is different. You understand? So it's not like you can look at it and decide this can be done, this can be done, because it just depends. But another thing, having come here myself as an immigrant, it also depends on where you land. You understand? Yeah, it depends on where you land. Meaning, if you the person who welcomed you doesn't understand the lay of the land, you can actually just stay without a job. Or they are not in healthcare, they are in, say, finance, and they don't understand healthcare. So that could be a complication. But we look at it. I will look at that one. And any other questions? Let's see. I see Beverly. Beverly had the question. Oh, the question Beverly had was about the what do you call it? About the family members, but we already taken care of it. She's just coming right now. I think she will go through with her when after the meeting. I see she just coming. The other thing that I was thinking, and we have been having discussions about, is I saw on the ethical side, Ms. Kelly said, paying a recruiter. Explain that. What does paying a recruiter mean? And that was a mark that you had on the things, or the ethics side. You said paying a recruiter. So I was at a loss whether paying a recruiting company or paying somebody who brought them. I don't understand.
Sure. So that would be like a fee to the recruiter. Correct, Mukul? Am I?
That's right. Yeah.
So basically, what you're saying, that you expect the employer to pay for the services, not the recruitee.
Correct.
Okay. So the candidate can only be charged for breach of contract.
Right. So a recruiter can be a recruitee. So there's a general principle in international law that's developed, is that you shouldn't have to pay to work. Yeah. Right. So in some instances, less so to the US, but to certainly the Middle East and other countries, people were paying thousands of dollars to a recruiter to get the job, and that's not good. So the way you should pay a recruiter is you can pay under the code and under visa rules. You can pay for some certain ancillary fees. For example, if there were some filing fees or legal fees, those can be billed to you. A lot of recruitment firms do cover that on behalf of people, but you shouldn't have to pay the recruiter for the services of being a recruiter. And that is generally considered, that's not just an alliance rule, but that's also the current State Department rule when they're issuing visas for interviews, is they'll often ask you, did you pay for a fee? And you're not eligible for a visa if you did. Okay. Yeah, but of course the recruiter can recoup their investment if you breach your contract through a fair and reasonable breach fee.
Yeah, because basically we recruit for the hospitals. The hospitals pay us for that. Obviously, the hospitals will, for some reason, I've seen one or two, which I look at it and I think that when I'm recruiting locally, the amount of money they are paying the candidates is less than what they are paying from international. So I normally think that they actually charge my candidates for the fee they pay me, but I have nothing to ask. I do not know that, but I suspect. You understand? You understand that, like, I can go in like Leslie, who is not coming from overseas. Maybe they give me 35, they give them 35 or something, and then somebody who's coming in fresh is getting 28, and I'm thinking, how did that happen?
Yeah, that does happen, right? So absolutely, and this is a real source of complaint by certain groups, is that foreign educated nurses tend to make less than the US, even though by law the wages should be equivalent. Yes. And part of that's because of the cost of the staffing firm or recruiters that pay it, right? They're paying a fee for your services. Part of it is because the contracts that foreign educated nurses sign are longer term, so they have less mobility versus someone domestic can walk, just walk off a job, right, and still have no penalty for that. So there are lots of kind of complicated factors, but that's absolutely correct, David.
Okay.
And that's kind of the way it works. I know Lydia had a question, follow up about the J1. Yeah, so if you want to talk to David offline or certainly email us, we can get into more detail about that. Adjustment of status is complicated for a variety of reasons, and there could be some cost to whoever's sponsoring you on that, so that could be an issue. But certainly some of the staffing firms in particular, and David could probably talk to you about this as well, do this. So I think it's about, even if you can't find a hospital or other direct employer who would do that, because they might not want to deal with administrative headaches, there are certainly companies that you can work with who do this regularly. So
I think with the shortage now, most of the people in the industry are just doing it. Just as long as if somebody shows up and is ready for work, they just take on and do the paperwork. Although the hospitals themselves don't want to do it, they just want what you call work ready person at the door. so that's how it works. Most of the time, the employers in the US, it's just more like, even in other industries, like when they're exporting something, most of the American companies don't want to export anything. They just want to sell it at the door. They don't want to deal with the headaches of exporting. That's why there are people in the middle who do the export. So it's the same thing as with the nursing.
right.
I've seen that in most of the organizations here. They just don't want to know. They just want to know, are you authorized to work in the United States? Yes or no? If you are you ready to work today? Yes, fine. That's what they want.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think the reason why is, like, hospitals, they used to do a lot more of this and got rid of their like international recruitment 10 years ago. It's really expensive. It's a really difficult process. You don't know what the timelines are going to look like. And so they're like, we don't want to deal with this. We'll leave it to people like David who have the stomach for that to
I think so.
ride the roller coaster.
I know, because there's a hostel back. You came in the back, my backyard, and I asked them. They said, we stopped doing that, but if you bring, we will hire them. They were like, okay, no problem. You give me a job. You understand? It's like that's the job we are here for. So I think we'll do that. We'll do that for you. Any other person with a question? We are waiting. You can type the question. Thank you. We will be talking to you, Leslie. What else do you need to tell these recruits, the ones who are here and the ones who will be listening to this, because we'll have this on YouTube for a long time. So just give us what you always wanted to tell the recruits that are coming here.
All right. Kaley, do you want to go first, and then I'll close off? Or?
Sure. So I kind of highlighted it before, but just making sure that you're reading your contract and you know what happens if you violate your contract or what your expectations are is really important. Again, sometimes when we talk to nurses, they don't know that, and that can create a problem later on. So just making sure you're aware of things like that, you know the numbers, is a really important part of the process.
Yeah, that's great advice. And the other thing I would say to people is, this seems like a really long and difficult process. And it is, but there are people who are here to help you on the path. I mean, David arranged this. The Alliance is always here as kind of as a free resource for you that CGFNS funds to be helpful. And I would say this, like, I know that at times this can be challenging, but remember what you're doing this for, right? The US, for all its failings and for all the problems it has, is still a remarkable place to work as a nurse and other types of a professional, and it's a remarkable place to live and raise your family. So remember the opportunities when you're dealing with some of those challenges, because Kaley and I talk to nurses all the time, and a lot of them do face problems, and you can avoid those by doing that homework. But in the long term, I would say the career opportunities and professional growth opportunities in the US are still some of the best in the world. So that's a really exciting opportunity for you.
That's true. I think even the difficulties and the failings that seem to be the US seem to have are actually the strength they have. Because I was talking to somebody of they told me that they have 1,500 graduated doctors in Kenya who haven't had a job for the last 1 year.
Wow.
You understand? That is a more crucial thing than the difficulties and the hoops you have to jump to be able to work here. And I also what I normally recommend is that please don't try to take shortcuts. Please don't take shortcuts. Like Kelly said, read the rule, read the contract, follow the procedure. It might take long, or it might look like you're doing too much paperwork, but it's good for you. It's never good when you show up and there's a piece of paper that is missing, or something that you should have done yesterday and you haven't done today. So I normally just recommend that talk to your recruiter. We are hoping that you are coming to us, but we would like to know that we are hiring professionals who look at the contracts, look at what they are going to provide, and are able to talk to our customers and provide the services that they require. So we are not looking for people to babysit, and we are expecting people who are confident in their profession and who can be able to deal with the customers and their customers, so that we have a name to protect and your professional to protect. That's why we arrange this with the CGFNS, so that even when you come here, you know you can call up Miss Kelly, you can call up Barakash and talk to them, so that you have a very smooth stay in the United States. Thank you, guys. I'm very happy that you came to talk to these guys so that we can be able to do this thing and do it right.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity, David. And
Thank you.
thank you all for being here. One other thing I want to add is, as Kaley mentioned before, if you do have questions, you can reach out to us confidentially. We can set up time to speak. It's staff@cgfnsalliance.org. And the other thing I want to mention that I didn't highlight in my conclusion is that the U.S. is really unique. One of the things people, nurses coming from other countries often say is, I feel like I'm part of a team here. And so I think one of the biggest shifts for a lot of nurses is in a lot of places, you can feel like it's more of a task orientation. You're doing a task and you're doing what a doctor says. And the US model, you really are the critical piece in the care delivery team. You're often the eyes and ears, you're the one spending time with the patient, making recommendations. And so that can be scary at times when you're transitioning, and that's why I think orientation is really important. But as David was saying, like, as you start this process, now is the time to adopt that attitude. So you're not a bystander in this journey, you're driving this journey. So get out the information you need, be proactive, figure out what are the cases, and get the stuff that David needs to process your application in a timely manner. And those types of skills will serve you really well when delivering patient care as a nurse in the US.
And the other thing, coming from Africans, speak up. Actually, this is one thing that Ms. Kelly, you don't understand. Our recruits don't speak up, okay? And that inability to speak up makes their contribution to the team less than optimum. You understand? Speak up, ask questions, and understand that the culture in the United States is different from the culture in Kenya or in Ghana. So that cultural orientation, when our cultural team is talking to you, listen, appreciate the fact that how you will treat patients in the United States is very different from how you treat patients in Kenya. And how they react to you is going to be very different from how the patients react to you in Kenya or in Africa. So that is one of the big things that we have to, it is the people thing, is the cultural thing. I think there is a culture out in Africa where the boss speaks and you do. Whereas here, we expect you to talk back because that's what you were being paid for. Isn't it? I mean, I am paying somebody who is a nurse because me, I'm not a nurse. So I'm not going to tell a nurse what to do unless the nurse has to tell me what I need to do because there's a nurse. You understand? So I'm not recruiting, and I do not want to